Hey, we're going live tonight about the Gunpowder Empires. Drop me a comment and let me know when you show up. Also, let me know how homecoming was. Everybody have fun this weekend? Hey, how's it going? Good to see you, kiddo. I'm going to get things started here. Did you do any of the fun homecoming stuff? Hi, Madison. Did you guys do any of the fun homecoming? Go in the games or the dance or anything? Forgot to read the AMSO book. Well, it was homecoming weekend. Maybe you'll have some time to read tonight. Hi, Luz. How you doing? Good to see everybody here. All right, well, I didn't put any notes down in the links this morning because I want you guys to just be able to take some notes on your own. Hi, Lana, how you doing? So you can write your notes, but I would definitely take them because they will help you with the LEQ. Basically, what we're going to do is cover the Gunpowder Empires, talk about them for a little bit, and then I'll talk just real briefly about the LEQ. Tomorrow, your teachers will be going over the rubric. And then tomorrow night, I'll be posting a how-to LEQ video just in case you have more questions that weren't answered through the day or if you forget some things. Because tomorrow, you're going to be writing a LEQ skeleton, which will basically be used on your essay when you write it on Tuesday. So the more detailed that is, the better, okay? Hi, Dominique. This is not about the reading assignment. No, we're going to talk about the Gunpowder Empires, which you did have to read about. So it does go hand in hand, but it's not specifically the reading assignment. It's not the questions. But we're going to be talking about the Gunpowder Empires. That information you're going to be using for writing your LEQ tomorrow and Tuesday. So you'll want to grab a piece of paper and a pen. If you're watching on your phone and you want to take notes on your computer, that's fine too. But make sure you get down some notes about the Gunpowder Empires, just in case you missed some of this information when you were doing your reading. Also, you could have gotten some information about them last week when we did the autopsy of the Gunpowder Empires. So all of that information will work for your LEQ. Noella, it was cold. Yes, it was. This is the first year, I think, since I've been in Texas that it's been this cold this early. So, yeah, it was cold. Did you have fun, though, Noella? I hope you did. Hi, Rami. How's it going? Did you do any of the homecoming stuff? The game looked fun. Did we win? I didn't end up seeing if we won. I saw when we were up in points. Team Vanilla, the LEQ, we're going to start tomorrow. Your teachers will be going over the rubric, and then we are going to be writing it on Tuesday. Oh, that's a bummer that we didn't win. Oh, well, it's still fun anyway. All right, so we're going to get started. The first thing I want to talk about is context, all right? There's going to be something on your LEQ as well as your DBQ called contextualization. And basically what it means is what is going on in the rest of the world before, during, or after the time of your topic that relates to your topic, okay? So, like, what are the other things in the world that have to do with what's going on, all right? So we're going to talk about the context of the Gunpowder Empires. So put a heading down your notes that says Context, Gunpowder Empires. This will help you on the very first part of your essay. Okay, so here we go. Basically, Gunpowder Empires are from the time around 1450 to 1750. This is the time period that we're talking about, okay? The chunk of time that we're talking about. So what's going on around the world in that time period? That's what context is asking you, okay? So the first thing that you need to write down is that gunpowder spread through the trade routes, specifically from China, all right? Because remember, it's invented in China. It spreads to other empires. And of course, they're going to use it because it gives them a significant advantage over their enemies who may or may not have it, all right? Gunpowder Empire specifically refers to multi-ethnic states. Make sure you get this word down in your notes. Ethnic. I got to spell it right. That basically, if you break it down, it just means a lot of different ethnic groups are living in these empires, okay? Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. It just depends. All right, so gunpowder empires means multi-ethnic states, and they rely on firearms to defeat their enemies and to control their territories and build their empires. All right, so this time period that we're talking about is also about empire building, okay? So these empires include 3 different empires. They're the ones that we did the autopsies on. The first one is the Ottoman. And we have the Safavid. And then we also have the Mughal Empire. All right, those are the 3 that we're going to be talking about tonight. They're very militaristic, but they're also really good with art and architecture. So they do have some culture going on as well. During this time period, as I said, they're expanding and they're building their empire. Okay. So also during this time period, okay, this is the important part because this is the context of the Gunpowder Empire. So we have to talk about what else is going on in the world. So we have the Qing dynasty in China. They're also building and expanding their empire. And they're also being invaded several times, but they're still prospering. So that's kind of what's going on in China. We also have some stuff going on in Europe. This we have not talked about yet. This will come next, but Europe is expanding and exploring. This is the time when they start sending out explorers like Christopher Columbus and explorers from Portugal and France and England and the Netherlands. All right, all these explorers will eventually end up in the Americas, and we'll talk about them next week, or well, probably the week after. Basically, the French, the English, the Dutch, and the Spanish are all going to have some kind of claim in the Americas. So these monarchies that are in charge in Europe, some of them are new, and they're trying to show their power. That's how they're going to show their power, by sending out explorers and trying to get more territory by building their empire. So the gunpowder empires were building their empire across land. Europe is going across the ocean to build empires. Okay. Hi, Josue. How you doing? Good to see you. All right. So put down for Europe that their trade routes will eventually include the Americas, and that the monarchies in Europe are trying to centralize the power. Remember, we talked about a centralized government, which is basically the government in one spot, kind of under one umbrella instead of several governments all over. So they're centralizing power. They're trying to control taxes, religion, and military. Also, because the monarchs want to be more powerful than the nobility, they're starting to build their own armies rather than get armies provided by the nobles. They're trying to take that power away. And so we'll see a middle class rise in Europe as well. That's a little bit about context, okay? Now, one quick thing that I want to tell you, this is going to help you, so make sure and listen. When you're doing your reading questions, pay attention to the things that are going on at the same time that connect together. And when you see those things, put it down in your notebook, even if it's not a reading question. Put a little side note and write context beside it, because oftentimes you can use that later for an essay, okay? So remember, context is before, during, or after the event, all right? So when you're reading in your AMSCO book, the little snippet that's in the beginning of the chapter, that talks about context. That usually gives you like an overview of what's going on in the world at that time. If you read the online book, the very beginning part gives you a really good overview as well. I would suggest reading both, because both of them will give you more information. And if you've been getting your grades back for SAQs, you know it's very important to be specific and have enough information. So make sure you're summarizing that stuff in your reading notes. Does anybody have any quick questions about context, what it is, or anything like that? If you do, throw them in the comments and we'll get them. We're going to start with the Ottoman Empire. So we're going to take some notes on the Ottoman Empire. Okay, Ottoman Empire is founded in the 1300s. It goes all the way to 1918. I mean, that's pretty amazing. It's around 600 years that this empire was there. So that's pretty good. That's a huge amount of time, okay? The religion is Sunni. Now, a little bit of context about that. Remember we talked about the split in Islam between the Sunni and the Shia because they couldn't decide who they wanted to take responsibility to rule the religion after Muhammad dies. Okay, so we have two sides, the Sunni and the Shia. Ottoman Empire is Sunni. Okay, how does this happen? Well, it happens because one of the emperors, or I guess it would be a caliphate actually, Mahmud II, besieges Constantinople. Constantinople. I think that's how you spell it. Constantinople is the capital of the Byzantine Empire. All right. At the time that Mahmud besieges it, that it is Christian. So at one time it was Christian. Then they besiege it and kind of conquer it and take it over. And at that time it becomes Islamic. They also changed the name to Istanbul, which is what it's still called today. Okay. This happens. So let's see. Constantinople is once the center of the empire, the Byzantine Empire, and now it's going to become the center of the Ottoman Empire. All right. It's right there in those trade routes. So that's important. All right. So that's what Mahmud does. And then after his rule, we have Solomon the Great. Let me write his name down here. I want to spell it right for you. Solomon the First. He tries to conquer Vienna in Austria twice, but he fails. He is able to take some area in North Africa. And he also starts a period of reform in the 1700s. So this whole time, they're trying to build an empire. The Ottoman Empire will eventually be one of the biggest empires ever. So they do become quite successful. Okay. One of the practices that they do, let me make sure this is spelled right too, that you probably read about and that is important is the Devshirm. Okay. Devshirm means the gathering. And basically it's a gathering of Christian boys to initiate into service for the Ottoman Empire. And what they do, it's kind of like the Hunger Games. Okay, that's what it reminded me of when I was reading about it. So the Ottoman officials go to rural villages, mostly in Serbia, Greek, and Albania. And they ask the priest for the birth records because at the time when you had a baby, it had to be baptized as a Christian. And the priest would keep those records in the church. So they'd ask for those records so that they would know who are the boys in the area that are around 8 to 12. They would gather them all up and they would choose the ones that they wanted to take with them. Then they would make them change into a red uniform. They would march them away. Now, sometimes families didn't mind this because eventually the Devshirm children that were gathered up are going to become the Janissary. Let me find that word on here so I can spell it right for you. I don't see it on my notes. Janissary. I think there's only one N. Okay, so eventually they will train as the Janissary. The Janissary are an elite military that is basically going to be the Sultan's personal military. All right. So some Christian families actually wanted their kid to be taken because this would put their child in a higher role in society and might be able to help them out. Some Muslim families even wanted their kid to be taken, and so they would pretend to be Christians in order to get their kid into the Janissary troop. However, that wasn't as predominant as the ones who didn't want their kid to be taken, because you can imagine as a parent, you're probably not going to want to never see your kid again or not get to see him until a long, long time. Who knows? Who knows if you'll ever get to see him again? All right. So they did this gathering every few years. And after they'd marched them away to the Ottoman Empire, they would give them a Muslim name, they would convert them to Islam, and they would begin military training. The elite of this group would get a really special education, and they would get put in civil administration jobs. The others would become military, and they basically are going to be an elite military group reporting to the Sultan. So they're supposed to be loyal to him. This is how you spell Sultan. Oops, no, that's not. Sultan is basically like a king. Okay. Let's see. So this training as a janissary is very elite. It's very prestigious. It's very difficult. These janissaries would be the best of the best as far as military goes. Now, technically, they were slaves. So you'll often see that they were slave troops. Sometimes you see that together when you're reading. However, they weren't like a typical slave that you would purchase because they assimilated into the culture of the Ottoman Empire, and they became more elite and valued than what a slave would be. They had privileged roles, basically. Some even rose to prominent positions within the janissary. Okay, so this kind of dies out around 1650. And eventually, free Muslims will be given the roles in the Turkish government. Okay. Now, they become really, really great warriors, and they are going to start becoming too powerful to where the Sultan is starting to be challenged. Sometimes they'll revolt against him and not really like his ideas. Sometimes they oppose reforms. This happens in 1826. So get this down, 1826. And the Sultan at that time was Mahmud II. Basically, Mahmud II had some reforms that the janissary didn't really like. So they're going to revolt against him. And he didn't like the fact that they were going up against him. So he surrounds their barracks with cannons and bombards the barracks, pretty much killing everyone. Those he didn't kill, they went underground and they weren't janissary anymore. So that was basically the end of the janissary military because they had gotten too powerful and they were challenging the Sultan. Okay, let's talk for a second about this guy's reforms. So the Sultan, he was working very hard to get rid of corruption in the government. All right, and that was one of his reasons why he wanted to start these reforms. He created secular schools. This is how you spell secular. Secular just means more worldly and not governed by religion. He creates new laws. He's going to build more infrastructure. Does anybody remember what infrastructure is? Quiz question. Let's see if you can get it. Anybody? Giving you about 2 more seconds. If you're in my class, I'll give you extra credit. Infrastructure. Anybody got it? No? Infrastructure. Bridges. Roads. There we go. Tuan got it. Yes. Bridges, roads, any kind of building. Yes. Good job, Luce. I need to give you guys more time to type, I guess. Oh, hold on. Wait. I got this. Pretty cool, huh? I'll give you a little hand clap. All right. So let's go on. He also created new laws. He had what was called the Ottoman Reform Edict. Oops. Can't write tonight. Edict. And what that was it basically updated the legal system, and it gave equality to men who, let's see, let me find, it gave equality to men in education, and it gave you justice in the legal system regardless of your ethnicity or your religion, okay? Because remember, we not only have the Sunnis in the Ottoman Empire, we have several religions, right? And so this reform gave more equality. Christians often would reject this reform because it threatened their autonomy. What's autonomy? Why would they worry about that? Anybody know? Autonomy? Yeah. Good job, Tuan. Hold on, wait. Let's see if I got a sound for that. Good job. Yeah, their freedom, their ability to govern without the Ottoman Empire telling them what to do. And so that was one reason they didn't like it. Good, Rami. Self-government. Awesome. Okay, so Muslims also did not like this because it rejected traditional values. Okay, so put that down underneath where you wrote about the edict. Another thing about the Ottoman Empire is that sometimes they adapted to Islamic traditions. For example, there was a hat that the military was supposed to wear, and the hat had a brim on it. Well, when Muslims bowed down to pray, they needed to be able to touch the ground. And because of the brim on their hat, they couldn't. And so that's when they made this hat, and it's called a fez, and it doesn't have a brim. Basically just sits on your head, and it's kind of tall. It's about like this tall, okay? And just sits down on your head. And so that was how they adapted to the fact that Muslims need to be able to touch the ground when they pray. That way they don't have to take off their hat. All right, in the Ottoman Empire, we also have what's called the harem. The harem was basically a private women for the Sultan. Some of them were considered his wives or his queen. Others were just like princesses. Basically, it was a system to produce heirs. Okay, and heirs is spelled like this. Heirs to the throne. All right. It's unique because oftentimes these women could be slaves. And so basically the heir to the throne, their mother could be a slave. The queen mother was the one that wielded all the power. So she would kind of control the harem. All right, let's talk about the Ottoman decline. So they begin to lose territory first in Greece around the 1800s. That's when independent movements are going to start happening. One of the reasons that these independent movements start happening is because of nationalism. Nationalism basically means that you have a love for your own country. So remember, Ottoman Empire, huge empire, multi-ethnic. So now when they start thinking about nationalism, they're going to think, hey, our ethnic group really should have our own country. We shouldn't be governed by people who aren't like us. Okay, and so that's where nationalism starts to come from. Belief in their own autonomy. There's that word again. Make sure you get that now. Autonomy, being able to govern themselves independently, self-government, okay, as Tuan and Rami shared with us. So European countries, they start to help with these independent movements. For example, Serbia sets up their own dynasty with the help of Russia. Now, why would European countries help with these independent movements? What would be the point of that? Anybody have any ideas? Why would they be so interested in allowing, or I guess breaking up the Ottoman Empire? So here's the question again. Why would European countries be willing to help the different ethnic groups in the Ottoman Empire get independence from the Ottoman Empire? No, they're not taking them over. At this time, anyway, they're not. At this time, Tuan, what they're like, for example, Russia helped Serbia become independent. So Serbia is going to be independent from the Ottoman Empire. Russia's not taking them over. Ah, yes, to be able to give less power to the Ottoman Empire, to break it up, right? They're not taking the land. They're allowing them to be independent, but they really don't want the Ottoman Empire to be that big because with that size comes power. And so they don't want that. They want to be able to break up the Ottoman Empire. So that's one of the reasons politically why they're helping. Okay. Most of the time, countries don't just do things out of the kindness of their heart, right? I mean, even think about the United States and the wars that we've been in. Most of the time, it revolves around resources that we want, like oil. All right. Most of the time when we go in someplace, it's either because we're getting revenge for something or because we want their oil and we want to be able to dominate that area. So a lot of times it's about power, right? And it hasn't changed throughout history. So European countries start to help with these independent movements. Also, at the same time, the Ottoman Empire is having a problem competing with other European nations. So put that down as a reason for decline. Sultans start to allow foreign investors to come into the Ottoman Empire and invest money. This is going to eventually damage the Ottoman Empire's economy. Also, as another reason, they have few exports and very little agriculture. The other thing is that as the empire is declining, they start to blame the Armenian Christians for their problems. All right, Armenian is spelled like this. Armenian Christians were in the Ottoman Empire, and they're a minority. They're also Christian. They're not Sunni Muslims, so they're an easy target to blame for the country's problem. Then we have the Young Turks. The Young Turks are going to try to Turkify or Turkification all of the ethnic groups in the Ottoman Empire. Turkification basically means coming together and having one culture. Now remember, we talked about how there's a ton of ethnic groups, all right? So now the Young Turks are saying, hey, change your culture and be more Turkish. How well do you think that went over? Not very good, okay? Not very good at all. So what eventually is going to happen during World War I, the Turkish government basically tries to systematically exterminate the Armenian Christians. And this would be the Armenian genocide. This is the first time that genocide is really noted in world history. And they basically use the excuse that the Christians would be more loyal to a Christian government taking over the Ottoman Empire versus the Caliphate. And so they try to exterminate them. And it's an awful point in history. It's definitely a stain on Turkish history. The other thing that leads to their downfall is that in World War II, the Ottoman Empire allies with Germany. And that will eventually mean their end when Germany leaves. Oh, sorry, not World War II, World War I. That will lead to their end when Germany loses World War I. Any questions about the Ottoman Empire? Any questions? All right, let's go on to Safavid. Safavid Empire. The Turks. You'll just have to rewind it, Rami. You can rewind it, I think, right now, and then you can catch up with us, okay? All right, so Safavid is established in what is now northern Iran. Did you have like specific questions about the Turks that I didn't answer, Rami, or you just need to hear it again? If you had specific, let me know. And basically, when you guys are taking notes, you can write down bullet points. You don't have to write down everything exactly how I say it, okay? I can't say it. That basically, Rami, means that they're trying to change all of the multi-ethnic groups to become Turkish. So they're trying to tell them basically, get rid of your culture and get this new Turkish culture. Okay. They were trying to exterminate the Armenian Christians. Okay, that would be the Armenian genocide. And basically why they do that, or why they wanted to do that, is because they were afraid that if a Christian government came into the Ottoman Empire, that the Armenian Christians would help that government defeat the Muslims. Okay? All right, so let's go on to Safavid. I'll try to go a little bit slower to make sure you guys get this. Just let me know if you need me to slow it down a little bit. So we have Ishmael. He conquers most of Persia, Iraq, and Iran at the age of 14 or 15. Okay, so this guy's like awesome as a teenager. And he proclaims himself Shah in 1501. So Shah is spelled like this, and he proclaims himself to be that in 1501, basically like a king or a ruler. Okay. At that time, he is going to impose the Shia religion. All right. So already we have the Ottoman Empire, the Sunnis. Now we have their rivals, the Shia, very close by. That's probably going to cause problems. How do you spell? Oh, yeah, there you go. Tuan got it. That's how you spell his name. 15 years old, how to bully my friend. That's what you're learning when you're 15 years old? Well, this guy was conquering empires. Okay, he was awesome. All right, so we have a battle in 1514. This is how you spell it. The Battle of Chaldiran, and this is 1514. That is between the Ottomans and the Safavid. And it's basically because they don't believe in the same religion. Remember, Safavid is Shia, Ottoman is Sunni. So they're kind of going up against each other. This is going to deepen the Sunni-Shia split. Remember, they split because they couldn't decide who the next caliph should be. This deepens that split. Okay. Okay, so at this time, the Ottoman artillery and janissary troop will crush the Safavid. All right, so the results of this is that the Ottoman win, and that the split is deepened between the two. They just don't like each other at all. All right. Keep that battle up there just in case you need to get it written down. Our next Shah is Shah Abbas. And he rules from 1588 to 1629. And his claim to fame is he will try to